I decided that I wanted to make this video because I was asked over and over again by people that I know. They would say to me, I have so many ideas. How do I get started? How do I take this idea and turn it into a business? So that really is the genesis of the idea for this video. Is I want to kind of walk you through what the process, if it isn't obvious to you, as to how you get started. I'm hoping that this video will give you some pointers and some tips. Now, before I get started, let me level set and kind of discuss what this video is and what it is not. One, I will talk about a business plan, the almighty vaunted business plan. We will discuss that, but I want to be clear. This is not a video about creating a business plan per se. It is part of what I'm going to talk about, but I think that there are so many resources out there already on business plan templates, that you really don't need me to kind of go into that for you. So I will touch upon it. I will talk about the aspects of a business plan that I believe are most salient to me. But if you want additional resources, I think there are plenty out there. I will put in the description of this some resources that you might want to check out if you want to know more about it. So let me kind of do that. And also, this is more from a 50,000-foot level. This is not about taking an idea and starting any specific type of business. I'll give you an example. Let's say if you wanted to start a consulting firm, which I have done, that would be one set of steps that you would need to take to do that, versus if you wanted to start a production company, which I've also done. That would be a different set of specific steps you would need in order to start a production company. I'm going to do this so that is agnostic to any kind of business that you want to start, but these are the general activities, the task, if you will, that you should probably go through when you're trying to figure out, do you have an idea that you can create a business from? Okay, so that really is what I'm trying to do with this video. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's get started. So you have all these ideas, don't know what to do. My recommendation, the first step that you do is write down all of your ideas. Do not self-edit at this stage. Good, bad, different, silly, whatever you might think the idea is, go ahead, write those ideas down. Just list them as they come into your head. Once you've got all of your ideas down, then you want to go back through your list, and then you want to ask yourself a question. Which of these ideas am I most passionate about? Now, you need to be very honest with yourself when you're doing this assessment, because you don't want to pick an idea. You shouldn't try to kind of shortcut it. And what I mean by that is, oh, I'm going to choose this idea because I think this will make the most money. Don't do that. Remember, this may be an idea that you're working on for years and years to come. You're not trying to create a chore for yourself. You're not trying to create a job for yourself. What you want is a career. What you want is something that you want to have an opportunity to live your passion. So choose that. I strongly urge you to choose the thing that you're most passionate about. We're going to have another step where, yes, it's true. Sometimes not all of our passions can actually make money. But for this phase, I want you to choose what you think, what gets you the most excited, what would get you jazzed about getting up in the morning. Choose that. Once you've done that, then the next thing that you have to do is you have to do your research on the idea. And there are some basic questions that you need to ask yourself. One, is there anyone else providing the same product or service? So you look out there, you get your handy dandy Google search, find out, is there anything like it, on the market right now? And if there is something like it, then the next question you have to ask yourself is, how will you be different? Now, this is a point that I know a lot of people skip over, is this point of differentiation. And yes, it is true. You can think of a lot of businesses where their products are not really differentiated from their competition, but you don't want to be those companies. I'll give you an example. So let's say that, I happen to have this skill and I make really great sandwiches and I want to open up a sandwich shop. Well, there are a million sandwich shops, especially local ones all over the place. Um, I could just say, well, listen, I'm going to open up and put my sandwich out there and, see how it does. You could take that approach. But if you're taking that approach, you are treating your product or service, in this case, it's product, is a sandwich, you're treating it as a commodity, which means that you haven't helped your customers tell the difference between your sandwich and any other sandwich that's out there. Now, yes, if they're hungry and they happen to be nearest your shop, they will come in, they will eat it, and they will feel confident that, they're going to enjoy their meal. But that's not what you want. You don't want to be a commodity, because that's what you will be at that point, is a commodity. You're interchangeable with any other sandwich shop that may be around in the area, or um, any other sandwich shop that they have access to. What you want is to build a brand. The brand is something different. That means that even if there is another sandwich shop that's closest to me, I'm going to go out of my way to go to this sandwich shop because I know that brand and they are different than all the other stuff that I can get that's closer to me. I want their sandwich. That's the kind of company you want to be. And you have to figure out, okay, if there are other companies that are doing what I'm doing, then how am I different? How am I going to stand out? You have to have that, you quote unquote, I'm going to throw some terms in there. So, and I can see your eyes rolling back already, but this is just so that you are familiar when you're talking to other people and you hear these terms. I'm going to boil it down to you in simple English, but that's what we mean by a unique selling proposition is, well, how are you different? What's unique about your product or service so that when I'm talking to other customers, that I can quickly say, well, yes, but we're the only one that has X, or we're the only one that does Y. That's what you need, is that unique selling prop. What's different about you that no one else is doing, even though you're all selling the same product or service. So you have to think about that and you have to come up with that. And then after you've done that, the next question that you have to ask is, how big is the market? Are we talking, is the market, now, if you're doing a sandwich shop, your market might be local. But let's say you had the idea that I want to franchise this sandwich shop. Well, is it going to be national? Is it going to be regional? Is it going to be statewide? And then once you've thought about that, well, just exactly how big is that market? That's a very important point to take time to do some research to figure out, is it even big enough to be worth your time to try to make headway in? If it's a really small market, maybe not. Maybe it's a real niche market, and there's not a lot of room for a lot of players, and the market as a whole is not that big. So you might want to choose something else. But let's say I did that, I find out, I do my work, I'm interested in starting a national sandwich shop. Well, the market is pretty huge, but there are some very big players already in that market. And then I'd have to, again, how am I going to be different? All this that I have to start with. But again, don't get too far ahead of yourself. Really, what you're trying to do is just do some basic research right now to figure out, okay, how tall of a mountain is this that you think you're about to climb? You need to have some idea of that. And then once you find out how big of the market is, another question you have to ask yourself, sometimes you're making a product or you're providing a service that no one else has provided. No one has ever seen it. Well, then your problem now is you're going to have to educate your customers. you're going to have to tell them what it is your product does, how they use it, and why they need it. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to get that message out to them? Are you going to do demonstrations? Are you going to go to trade shows? How are you going to do that? You need to start to think about how you will educate your customers so that you will create demand for your product and service. Now, yes, that is a tougher it's a tougher road to go if that's what you decide that you want to do, but don't shy away from something because it's the tougher road. If it's your passion, if the market is big enough, by all means do it. Just be realistic about the size of the challenge that you're going into and be ready to put in the work to make it happen for you. So that's really how, you do this evaluation of all the ideas that you have, and then you figure out, okay, what can I, of all the stuff that I have written down, which one of these ideas do I think are going to be the gem that I can take forward? Now, don't be upset if the one that you pick doesn't work. That's why you should write them all down. You're going to try this one and it may not work. Statistically speaking, 95% of the time it doesn't work. So don't feel bad. But even if it doesn't work, I guarantee you, you're going to learn something from it. And you may decide that, okay, maybe I'll try another idea. It's this process, I won't lie, it's not, starting your own business is not for the faint of heart. There are significant risks in being an entrepreneur, but there are also significant rewards, as you may imagine, on being an entrepreneur. And that's why so many people have taken an interest in doing that. So, okay, we've got our ideas down. We've asked ourselves these basic questions. What kind of service are we going to provide? What service or product are we going to provide? Once you pick the idea that you're most passionate about, oh, and let me not, of course, forget to mention, you need to figure out, of course, how much it's going to cost you to make that product or service. That is, even before you start thinking about what price you're going to sell it at, you need to know how much is it going to cost you to provide that product or service. Now, maybe I'm going to sell at a $50 sandwich. Now, I haven't, taken leave of my senses. I know that there's not going to be a big market for a $50 sandwich. And that had better be the best sandwich on the face of this earth if you're going to sell it for that price. But that's where the differentiation comes in. If your product is unique enough, and then you can justify that premium, but you really need to be honest about what else is out there. I would say that's probably one of the number one problems that we as entrepreneurs have is this blindness. We think we're the only ones doing something. No one else in the world is doing this. That very rarely is true. So be honest about where you are in the market, and then charge. My personal philosophy, I think it's better to be on the premium end than the discount end. If you're on the discount end and you're charging a really low price, you don't have a lot of wiggle room. When your supply costs go up and you try to raise prices, you're going to get major resistance from your customers because you have trained them. This is the value of your product or service. Whereas if you're premium, you've already established with them, okay, you're going to be paying more than the average, but it's worth it. And when you have to ratchet up prices again, you will find less resistance. People are never going to be crazy about having to shell out more money. But again, if it's a brand that they've come to know and to trust, and as long as you keep up that level of quality, they'll be willing, most likely, if they can afford it, they'll be willing to take that ride with you and pay higher prices. So something to keep in mind when you're deciding on strategy of like how you price the product. But before you do that, of course, you need to know how much it's going to cost you. And then how much profit do you want to make from every sale? Now, I'm not going to go too deep into that one. maybe that's this issue called gross margin, and that's a whole video in itself of like how do you establish a gross margin, and what's the purpose of having a gross margin, and what does that mean for the health of your business based on how high or how low those gross margins are. Maybe that's another video I could do at another time. For now, just know that I recommend that you go more on the premium side than on the discount side. Okay. So we have all of that down. And now you need to evaluate yourself. You need to be honest about the strengths that you bring to the table and say, what is it going to take to take this idea and launch a business from this idea? And maybe you're not good at marketing, or maybe you're not good at accounting, or maybe you're not good at negotiations. Well, in that case, you really have two options. You're either going to have to learn how to be good at those things, and you have to be honest about, well, how much time is that going to take? How much effort is that going to take? Or you have to get a partner and bring somebody into the business that has those skill sets that complement you. And most businesses, have partners. Most successful ones have partners. Now, I know if you're a lone wolf, so like me, the idea of bringing someone else into your business might not appeal to you. So, then you're going to have personalities. Yep, you're going to have that. But if your business is ever going to grow, you're going to have to bring people into it. So you might as well take the time and look, bringing on a partner is like getting married. It's a lot easy to get, it's easy to get into, but it's hard to get out of. So choose wisely. I don't say that to discourage you or to scare you, but really think about the personality fit. It should be someone who shares your vision, who buys into your vision, who buys into your leadership, and who's dedicated to helping you achieve this dream. That's what you should be looking for in a partner. Of course, if you happen to be related to that partner, you really, really want to make sure that you can coexist in a business together, because the business might not survive, but your relative is going to be your relative. If you're married to that person, well, I hope that even if the business doesn't survive, your marriage does. So all of those things you have to consider when you're going for a partner, but be honest with yourself. If there's things that you're lacking and things that you know that you're going to need to move this idea forward, don't be afraid to go out and find that partner. We're ready. Oh, and you've evaluated your strengths and weaknesses. You've decided that you need to bring on somebody else to help complement what you bring to the table. So you have all that now. Then the next step, I would say, is now you need to talk about a business plan. So let me say this to you. And I almost hesitate to say it because I don't want you to take what I'm about to say the wrong way. But business plans are BS. All right. They are a complete swag estimate. And what is swag? I'll tell you a quick little story. I remember I've done a fair amount of IT work in my time, and we were sitting down having a project meeting, and the project manager turns to me and says, "Greg, I need your swag estimate to do this task." And I was like, I had heard the term swag before, but and I just had to admit, what do you mean by swag? And he turns and he grins and he says, it's a scientific wild ass guess. That's swag. And that's what your business plan really is. It's a scientific, hopefully, wild ass guess. So he said, well, wait a minute. If it's a wild ass guess, why am I even bothering to do it? Because you have to start somewhere. You need a guidepost, starting post. Now, most people make the mistake. You think you're going to do this document one time, put it in a drawer, and never see it again. Then, if that's what you intend to do, then you might as well not do it, because that's not really how you should be using your business plan. Your business plan is, it's like your guidepost. It's like to make sure that you've forced yourself to think about how you're going to do certain things. But especially when you start getting into forecast, the forecasts are nonsense, because until you actually start generating sales, you're not going to know. And you make contracts with suppliers, or whatever it is that you need to do to provide your service. Or if you're, let's say you're consulting, you think you're going to be able to do, charge so many dollars per hour for your service, but then you find out you're having a hard time. Maybe you have to subcontract, so that's going to cut into your margins as well. All of these things could happen to you. And reality is, once your estimate hits reality, it's going to have to change. I guarantee you that. But do the exercise. Now, there's no one right way to do a business plan. There are a zillion business templates out there, business plan templates. That's why I'm not going through that in this video. There's plenty of resources out there that can help you do that. But the way I think of a business plan, there are a minimum, these are not the only things, but there are a minimum of 4 things that I want to make sure that I get from my business plan. The first thing that I want to do is, how will I provide the service? I mean, from an operational standpoint, how will I either make the product or provide that service? Where am I getting the supplies from? Where am I gonna, if I'm making it, where am I making it? Am I assembling it myself? Do I need to hire people? If I'm providing a service, am I the sole provider? Do I need other people to assist? What kind of skills do I need to recruit for? All of these things, that's what you need to think about. Then you need to think about what options you're going to offer. Meaning, is there going to be one basic configuration for your product? Is there one basic service level? Or are you going to have different combinations and variation, different service levels, or one basic product and maybe some product extensions, some add-ons, things that you do? These are the kinds of things that you walk through and say, okay, what else can I offer my customer to entice them to buy? So walk through that. And then, of course, how much is it going to cost to make it? And then what are you going to sell it for? These are the core things that need to be in your business plan. Think about it from an operational standpoint. How are you going to do this? Especially in the early days, because you're not going to have a large workforce. So how are you going to divide up the task? Who's going to be selling it? Who's going to be producing it? Who's going to be delivering it? All of those things you think about, like, how will I actually run the business? I think that's the most important exercise that comes from doing a business plan, is to force you to think about those things and come up with solutions with every problems. And you're going to run into, how do I do this? How do I do that? But that every business goes through that. So it is completely normal. And, the more things you think of, great, because you want to think of them now before you start getting customers. And then you have problems and you can't deliver your product or deliver the service, and there are delays. So that's what this period now is, to make sure that you've thought through how you will actually do the business. And again, there's no right way or wrong way. Well, there's definitely a wrong way to do it. And the wrong way is to not be able to deliver the product or service when the customer wants it. That is paramount. You must be able to deliver the product or service when the customer wants it and where they want it. If you're not prepared to do that, then this is not a business for you, because it is very hard, once you disappoint a customer, to get them to trust you and come back to try your business again. So you must be prepared for that. But that's really what you want to get out of your business plan. There are other elements, like, for instance, marketing and PR. Those 2 things are huge. That is definitely a separate video Every single business has to do marketing. You could have the best product in the world, but if no one knows about it, it does not matter. So marketing is not a luxury. It doesn't mean you have to, it doesn't mean in all cases you're spending money on ads. There's other things that you can do to earn, earn media coverage, things like that. That is definitely not for this video, but you should be aware of it, and it definitely should be a part of your plan of how you're going to grow your business. Okay. So those are the basic things that I try to get out of any business plan that I do, regardless of what format that I do it in. Then the next step, after I've done all of this, the last thing that I'm going to ask myself before I actually go and launch this thing is I have to decide, is this a business or is this a hobby? Now, how do I, what's the distinguishing fact? Well, it turns out, the IRS actually has a publication. I'm going to list it in the resources for this video that you can go through. But I'm going to kind of boil it down a little bit to two big things that are the difference. Are you intending to make income from this thing that you're doing? If the answer is yes, it's probably a business. It may be something that you have to report to the IRS, depending upon what structure of business that you go into. And we're going to get into that next after this. But so are you earning any income from it? And do you expect to make a profit from it? If the answer to one or both of those questions is yes, then it's probably a business. And you need to treat it as such. And that means that there is certain now structure that you have to put behind this idea. Now, this is more, this part of the video is more universal. The kind of business that you are starting, of course, it will impact the business structure that you choose and some of these other, but you have to do these things regardless of what kind of business you decide. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so now what I want to talk to you about something that may not be totally obvious to you, and that's selecting your business address. I know that when you're creating a business, it's like you give no thought to it, but you should take a moment to think about, what are you going to use as the address of your business? Now, let me walk through a few scenarios where the answer to this question may not be quite that obvious. So let's take for all of you apartment dwellers out there, such as myself. You don't live in your own home and you live in your apartment. You may not want to list your apartment as your business address. I'm almost certain in almost all cases, it would be a violation of your lease. Now, as a point of practicality, would your landlord ever find out about it? Who knows? But if they did, just be aware that there's a risk that I'm pretty sure operating a business a commercial enterprise out of your rental unit would be in violation of your lease. So that's something to think about when you're, putting that out there. Even more important factor that will happen when you list your personal address as the business address, there are going to be business records that are going to be created. Now, we're going to talk about the different forms and structures in a little bit, but there's going to be a public record of your business, depending upon what kind of business form you take, that's going to be, that's going to create a public record that anyone can search. So do you want your address information out there in the public in that manner? So that's something else that you might want to consider. If you're using your home as the address of your business, then the other thing that you have to, and same thing if you're doing it out of an apartment, zoning. Again, I know lots of people do it, so as a practical matter, I understand, but I'm just I want you to be aware of that technically there is a risk when you do that. Because if whatever business activity that you're doing, the place that you list as your business address is not zoned for that business activity, that could come back to be a problem. Is it likely? I mean, that's hard to say, but just be aware that if that's what you choose to do, that could potentially be a problem. Here's some more things that you probably, I'm sure, didn't think about when trying to create your business. So let's say that you want to go for certifications, all right? And let's talk about virtual business addresses. Now, that is my preferred method of, I like to get a virtual business address because it allows me to keep my personal address, personal. Any statewide or countywide business records that are going to be created will have the virtual business address and not my actual home address in there. That's what I personally like to do. But and so do, by the way, many entrepreneurs go through and use a virtual business address. But here's again things you don't think about or things you weren't even aware of until, of course, you get into it. So when you go to open a bank account, some banks will not allow you to use a virtual business address as the address that is on the account. So just be aware of that. Um, there are certain certifications that you might want to go to. Maybe you want to be a certified minority or woman-owned business, or a certified veteran-owned business, or certified disabled person's business. Any one of those certifications, depending upon your state, sometimes there is a prohibition from allowing you to use a virtual business address on any records that you're going to create for the business. They want an actual physical address. Well, choosing the business address is important, and you need to give some thought about what you're going to use. So you should think ahead as to what you're going to be doing with your business. If you know that, hey, I want to try to see if I can get any kind of certifications that I can get to help my business out, then look into what the requirements are for getting those certifications. That's probably something that, that's a step that's easily overlooked, but you shouldn't, because it's a step that can come back to bite you. So remember, do your research, try to have an idea of what you want to do with your business, and then see what business address you want to use makes the most sense. Okay. Now let's move on and let's talk about the next topic. And the next topic is legal structure. Now, before I get into this, let's talk about a disclaimer. I am not a tax, nor am I a legal professional. So anything that I discuss here is based off of my personal experience, and it cannot be and should not be used in lieu of actual advice from a tax or legal professional. So I would just say that this is meant to give you an idea of what needs to happen, but you need to look at your specific circumstance and you need to consult a tax and legal professional. Yes, I understand it's expensive, but trust me, not setting up your company correctly is more expensive. So I don't skip on this step. You really want to do this. You really want to have, and those professionals can, ask you questions. They'll start you thinking so that they can help you determine what the best structure is for you. Now, I'm going to quickly go through the most common forms of legal structure. They vary from state to state, but they have similar characteristics. So that's the other thing, is you have to find out specifically in your state, what are the forms of business ownership that that they have, and then decide what is the best for you to do. Now, in the simplest form rather, in almost all cases, is a sole proprietorship. As the name implies, it is when there is a single owner. There is no difference between the owner and the business. They are one and the same. In most cases, what you'd have to do, especially if you're going to operate that business under an assumed name, meaning it's not going to be your name that you're doing business under, but you want to do, Diamond Magic floor cleaning, whatever it may be, you have to register that business name, usually at the county level. Now, I'm going to speak now specifically about New York because that's the state that I have the most experience in. But again, you need to find out specifically for your state, if you're not in New York, what the rules are. And there generally are going to be specific rules around each form of company that you are going to start. So for a sole proprietor, you usually, if you're not using your own name, you're going to have to register your business name. And you're going to have to register your business name. Now, here's the kicker. You're going to have to register your business name in every county that you are going to be doing business in. Now, that's the thing that I know as a young person, I did not understand, that I thought maybe there was just like this one-time license deal. You go somewhere and boom, you're ready to do business in the whole country. That's not how it works. So if you're going to be a sole proprietorship, it is the simplest form of business to open, but it's also, you're restricted. You can't have investors. Again, it's a sole proprietorship. There's no difference between your assets and the business assets. So that's the biggest thing that you need to know for. I could go into making some reckon, but I'm not going to do that. When you should use a sole proprietorship, again, that's really what you need your tax and legal professionals for. They can work with you on your specific situation and advise you what form of business you should take. My goal here is just to, if you weren't already aware of that, just to make you aware of what the possible choices are. So sole proprietorship is the easiest and fastest form, but lots of restrictions on what you can do with that. The next type of company is an S corp. Now, I don't have a ton of experience in creating S corps. I've never created an S corp for myself. That's not generally the form of business structure that I use, but a lot of people do create S corps. Now, the difference with an S corp is that you can have investors, but you're restricted in the number of investors, generally speaking, that you can have. I think the number is like 100. And those investors can't be another company, can't be a corporation or an LLC that can be an investor in an S corp kind of situation. So that is something that some people choose to. When you're first starting out, a lot of people will start out as a sole proprietorship. You're testing the business idea. You're testing to see if there's going to be sales. If there's not going to be a lot of sales and not a lot of profit and not a lot of risk, then sole proprietorship might make sense for you. But if you know that, hey, that there's a chance that sales could really take off, and then you'll probably want to look into some of the other forms of other structures that you can create. So an S corp is one of them. Again, there are more features about an S corp, but the biggest thing to know there, if you're not planning to do like a wide you can have investors, but you can't. You're restricted in the type of investors, as I said before. So if you know that you're not going to be trying to get institutional, and when I say institutional, I mean other companies to be investors in your company, then an S corp might make sense for you. And the S corp, generally speaking, so how that works is the S corp functions as what they call a pass-through entity, meaning that all of the income that the S corp generates, it works like a partnership. The income flows to the owners of the, of the S corp. That's generally how it works. But it does provide you a measure. It does separate your personal assets from the business assets. So from that standpoint, it does give you a greater measure of protection. Now, the other form of business that I have personally not done because I haven't been in something is a partnership. There are some details like this general partner and a limited partner, but the basic idea with a partnership is that it limits, depending upon whether you're a general partner or a limited partner, it limits your liability in that business equal to the amount that, there are some cases of negligence or things like that where it might be different. But for the most part, your loss is limited to the amount that you invested in the business. And there is some separation between your personal assets and the business assets. So, lots of doctors are partnerships, accounting firms, consulting firms are sometimes partnerships. This is a common business form. And again, you should look into and see if that, especially if there's more than one of you, if there's a group of you, and the partnership agreement, of course, is everything, because that is going to explain how the company's going to be run, who's going to be doing what, and most importantly, how the income, it doesn't have to be 50-50, but it's going to explain how the income derived by the partnership is going to be split up amongst the partners. So you have a partnership. Another form that you have is an LLC, a limited liability company. Now this I would probably say is become very popular. With an LLC, you have a choice. Now, when you register your LLC at whatever state that you work in, unlike a sole proprietorship, your LLC is clear to operate. I mean, you may have business permits and licensing depending upon the industry that you're in, but let's assume you don't have that. Once you register your company, then the LLC is clear to operate, and you don't have any other problems with business licenses. It's clear to operate in the entire state that you have registered that LLC in. Now that's the big difference. With a sole proprietorship, you have to register in every county that you're going to do business. And by the way, if you're in New York City, you may not have noticed this. Every borough in New York City is a county. So if you're going to be doing business citywide, you have to register that business in every county or every borough. So keep that in mind. But for an LLC, when you register, you're good to operate throughout the state because your business name is going to be reserved. You will have to do a search to see that that name is available, and they will allow you to, once your certificate of formation has been approved, then you will own that business name, and as long as that business is active, no one else can use that business name. Now, in most states, there are what they call publishing requirements. Again, this is where you get with your legal professional who will inform you of how these works, but they're usually additional. When you form an LLC, there's usually a publishing requirement, meaning you've got to tell other people in the state that you've done this. Man, I'm thinking the most logical reasoning for this is because you are actually reserving a business name. So you've got to have an official kind of proclamation, if you will. Hey, I'm going to be taking this name. Think of it that way. That's an LLC. So we have an LLC. Of course, you have a C corporation. Now, a C corporation if you think this is most generally the form that, like, if you're going to, if you're going to start the next Facebook or Google or whatnot, you're going to be a C corporation. You are intending, or you will strongly believe that you're going to at some point go out and, you're going to be trying to raise money through investors, and you plan on having a large number of investors, and you think that there could be a significant amount of revenue going through the company. Um, this is the form that many companies choose to take. LLC still very popular as well, but a C corporation, it definitely gives you the greatest flexibility in terms of raising money. This is the form of business that I typically do, not always, but that I typically do. It depends on, again, the purpose of that company. And again, I know I've said it, but it's worth repeating. Working with your legal and tax professionals to come up with what's the best choice, because they're going to ask you, what are you going to do? What do you envision? And based off of how you answer that, they're going to make recommendations on which form of business that you should use. But that's the next step now in making something real, is preparing the structure, and you need to have this in place as you start to grow your business, particularly if you're in the situation where maybe it started off as a hobby, but now you think, hey, I'm starting to get regular income from this. Now you need to put a structure behind it. So it's good to understand, at least at a base level, these different forms of businesses that you can create, and choosing the best one for your situation. Okay. Oh, and the last thing that I wanted to talk about is, and this is certainly something that is not, at least it wasn't obvious to me. So when you incorporate a company, and now specifically I'm talking about incorporated businesses. So I'm talking about either an LLC, um, or a C corp. This may or may not also apply to an S corp, but as I said, I'm less familiar with S corps, so I don't want to say it does or it doesn't. I believe it would, but LLCs and C corps for sure. This next piece would apply to. Now, when you incorporate, you get your certificate of incorporation in the case of a C corp, or a certificate of formation in the case of an LLC. You are, you are registered to do business in the state that you formed the company in. You are not registered to do business in any other state. If your company, like if you're a New York company and you incorporate in the state of New York, but you also are planning on having sales in New Jersey and in Connecticut as well, you may have to register your business as a foreign corporation in those states. Now, when we say foreign corporations, we don't mean from the standpoint that it's a company that was incorporated or created outside of the United States. We mean from the standpoint that, hey, I'm in New Jersey, but my company, and I'm making money, but my company is not incorporated in New Jersey. It's incorporated in New York. So in that example, that company from the state of New Jersey standpoint would be considered a foreign corporation. Every state that you want to do business in, there's this concept called a nexus. That means there's how I'll explain a nexus this way. There has to be a minimum tie, a minimum, connection, if you will. I think connection is a good word. A minimum connection to that state. And if you meet that criteria, you must register your business in that state. Now, different states have different rules. So again, this is where your professional will come out. Now, I know what listen, I know what small entrepreneurs do. You might think, hey, you know what? I know I'm supposed to register and my business, but I don't think I need to. Even if you're a consultant, and this happens a lot, and consultants, you know what I'm talking about. This happens a lot. if your consulting business is organized in New York and you have a client in New Jersey, technically you are not authorized to provide services in the state of New Jersey. Specifically, if you need to go on site to your client in New Jersey, then you now have a nexus and you should be reporting that income to the state of New Jersey. Now, all I can tell you, you do, what you want to do, but all I can tell you is that if you are ever audited by the state of New Jersey and they have suspicion that you have been deriving income, from entities in the state of New Jersey and have not declared that income, you're going to be subject to a fine. And state audits are not fun. They are not. And I can tell you, in times of economic downturns, that's what states do. They go looking for money. And they know that not everybody is, doing everything that they should be doing. So again, and I hope you're not getting a feeling like, oh my God, all I wanted to do was do this thing of mine. And now we're talking about all these different things. Yes, this is true. That mountain is getting a little bit bigger, but you can do this. No one was born knowing this. I was not born knowing this. Yes, it was overwhelming at the time. It seems like every time I turned a page, there was some other regulation or requirements. Don't waste your time, saying, oh, there's too many regulations or whatever. Whatever it is, it is. Okay. If you want your business to grow and you want to give yourself a shot at doing this, just do the right thing. That's my recommendation to you. Do the right thing. This way you don't have to worry about it. If you choose to do something else, just be aware of the risk that you're taking. Okay. So that's the thing you need there's no such thing as a national, business license. You have to go state by state that you're going to be doing business in. Now, if you're only doing business in one state, then as long as you're incorporated in that state, you're good. And of course, you're a C Corp or LLC, then you're fine. And there's no other industry specific, licensing requirements, you're fine. But if you're not registered in that state, then, potentially you could be facing a problem. All right. So don't say I didn't tell you. That's definitely something that they don't teach you, in business school, because it's and you're going to have to, you know, file returns for every state that you do business in. And we're going to talk about when we get to, the kinds of structures you're going to need to have in your business, because you need to keep track of where your income is coming from. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Again, this is doable. The reason why it flows off my tongue so easily is because I've been doing it for 20 plus years. But again, I was not born knowing this. You too, you will, because as you do it, you will learn it and you will understand it and, deal with it, as you will, as you go on in your business. Okay. So those are the different forms of businesses we've talked about. Let's go to the next topic. The next topic is banking. Okay. Now, regardless of what form of business you decided to open, you should have a separate business account. Now, when you go to open a business account, there's certain things that you should look for. I'm telling you right now, look at how much they're going to be charging you for fees. The fees on business accounts, generally speaking, the larger the bank, the larger the fees. So, but there's a trade-off. The larger banks, of course, also have other services that you will probably find are useful for your business. But you really want to dive into, and just again, you want to make some, swag estimates, remember that, as to what kind, what's your monthly income going to be like? Are you going to be dealing with, are they going to be sending you checks? How are customers going to be paying you? Are they going to be paying you electronically, with a credit card? What? Because all of that determines the monthly maintenance fee that your bank is going to charge you. So just have an idea of how you're going to transact business with your customers. The other thing you want to look at are features for your bank account. So you definitely want to have some sort of alerts, meaning that, hey, your balance falls below a certain threshold, you want to alert. This is very good and very helpful in your cash flow management. You want your business reputation, and in business banking is it one of the key things. So if I'm going to extend your business credit, one of the things that I'm going to look at is your business bank account. I'm going to do a reference with your bank to find out, well, how are you as a bank customer? So you want to have alerts on your account to help you prevent from, not having enough money in your account and being overdrawn, because obviously that will give your bank account a negative history to it, and that could down the line cause you problems when you want to A, go for a loan, or B, open up other bank accounts or open up a line of credit. This is why you want to manage that bank account and make sure that you have prevented it from being overdrawn. That it will very severely impact the rating of your bank account. Connectivity is another big one. You want a bank account that you can connect to whatever accounting software that you can have. QuickBooks is what I normally use. It's one of the more popular ones, but it's not the only one. There's Xero, and there's Sage. Sage used to be it's more higher end now than it used to be, because it used to be Peachtree Accounting. But anyway, there are multiple multiple companies. This NetSuite, depending on how large your business is, maybe you're using something like a NetSuite to do that. You want to make sure you have connectivity with your bank. The last thing you want to have to do is, be downloading transactions from your bank account. Boy, let me tell you, the ability to have that connectivity and to be able to pull those transactions into your accounting system, that will save you a lot of time, and that will make doing the bank reconciliation a breeze. So that's definitely a feature you want to look for. The other thing is, of course, electronic bill payment. If you are still cutting checks, I don't know what to say about you. This is, I cannot think of a single reason of why you would want to cut a physical check. ACH is more efficient. I think maybe I've cut in my business so far maybe 5 actual checks. And that's usually because the entity that I had to cut a check for had no other way to receive a payment. But you definitely want to be able to do electronic bill payments, specifically ACHs. I won't even bother talking about wires, because in the beginning, you're probably not going to need to do wires. That's usually when your business gets bigger and further on down the line. But at a minimum, you want to be able to do ACH, and you want to know what the bank is going to charge you for initiating that ACH. You make sure it's not outrageous. And again, you're going to have to try to figure out, well, how many of these ACHs am I going to have per month? And what options do they have? Is it a 1-day ACH, meaning that, hey, if I initiate this ACH to this vendor before a certain cutoff time, and on that day, they will have it tomorrow. That's 1 day. or is it a 2-day? A lot of banks will give you both options. I always use the 1-day option. I'm not really sure why they give you a 2-day option. I don't know why you would use a 2-day option, but I digress. um, so that's something that you would look for. A feature is that connectivity and having the electronic bill payments. That's very important. The other thing is the ability to have multiple users. Again, this is a business account. And now, okay, if you're a sole proprietorship, this really is not applicable to you because you're going to be the only user of the bank account. But for other forms of businesses where there could potentially be multiple people who are dealing with the finances of the company, you want the ability to have multiple users, and you want the ability to differentiate the access level that those users have. So making sure that you're dealing with a bank large enough that has a system that can accommodate that is very important. And finally, reports. Don't skip on the reports. You want to make sure that you have the ability to run a report so that you can see all the money that's coming in and out of those bank accounts, who's authorizing what. And you don't need to necessarily, you know, have it every day, but you need to be able to, at a minimum, run it on demand. And you should definitely be looking at it at regular intervals, because this is how you are going to safeguard your financial assets, is you're going to be regularly looking at these reports, looking for any irregularities. So you want to find a bank, account that will give you all of these features, not charge you an arm and a leg. But that's what you should be thinking about when you're opening up a bank account for your business. All right. So what are you going to need when you open it up? Now, again, that's going to vary by the bank that's involved. But generally speaking, I think these four things that I'm going to tell you, suggest to you, are somewhat universal. One is business letterhead. You're going to need something on a business letterhead so that they can see, so that they have some. Remember, every bank has to do due diligence on you. They have to prove that they did their due diligence to make sure that you are a legitimate company. And one of the things that legitimate companies usually have is some sort of official stationery. Now, you don't have to do it the old-fashioned way and actually have stationery printed up. What I do is, I usually have someone design, when we have the logo, they'll also design the stationery. And then I have the ability, I put that template, I add that template to I use Microsoft Word. So I add it to Word, and then I can just use that template. Hey, I want to print out the letterhead. These are the kinds of things that you're going to learn to do for yourself, because that's something that, generally speaking, every business at some point is going to need. All right. The other thing, which we talked about earlier, was the business address. The business address should be mentioned on that letterhead. They're also going to probably ask you for a bill of some type that shows that business address. Not every form of business, when you're opening, like for a sole proprietorship, I'm not so sure that you will get asked that if you're opening up a bank account in the business's name, but you might. But for a C corp, you're definitely going to be asked that. They're going to want to see something, some sort of bill that came to the business with that business address on there, that whatever business address you decided that you wanted to use. The other thing that they usually will ask for is, so in the case of, and now I'm going to, if you're a sole proprietorship, they're going to want to see that certificate from the county that you filed, to do business under assumed name. If you're an LLC, they're going to want to see the certificate of formation. And if you're a C corporation, they're going to want to see your certificate of incorporation. that is, standard documentation, and it usually doesn't matter what bank you go to. That's one of the things that they're going to ask you for. Um, and that's what you'll generally need when you're opening up your bank account. So just be prepared when you go have that conversation. Now, my experience is there are some banks that will let you submit all of this online. I think I've had enough experience with that to say my strong recommendation to you is to go into a bank branch. Yes, there are banks that you can do, at least when you're opening your first account with that branch. I think many banks will require that anyway. The temptation might be, hey, if I don't have to go into a branch, that'd be great. But you need to start a relationship with your banker. But I'm not gonna go into because that could be a whole nother video of why you need to have a relationship with your banker. But that's the biggest reason why you need to go in there is let them get to know you, let them get to see your face, let them get to know about your business and what you're trying to do. Your banker is going to be, I don't know, maybe friend, but it's going to be an ally that you need. How about that? I like the word ally. All right. So that covers the banking piece of it and what you need to do there. Now, what I want to talk about is, okay, you've done all your legal stuff, you've got your company set up. Now, again, to further go down that trail as to how you're going to actually operate this company. I think that is very important. And a lot of times we don't spend enough time. We're just so enthralled about, going out and getting sales. This might seem like a minor detail, but actually this is a big detail. So the first thing I want to talk about is customer relationship management. That is such a big part of what you're going to do. Whether you are marketing to businesses, if you're a B2B, business to business, if you're B2C, business to consumer, or if you're going to like a middle person, like a distributor or a wholesaler or whatnot, which again would be another form of B2B. But however it is, whatever business and whatever industry that you're in, you have to keep track of your communications with the various different customers that you're trying to get to buy your product and or service. So to me, I don't know how you do that. Yes, you can do it with a spreadsheet, but that's not really what spreadsheets are for. And I'm a big believer in using applications for what they were intended. Now, if a spreadsheet is all you can afford, then by all means, you can set, up a program for yourself, a table where you can keep track of all of the customers that you reached out to, the dates that you've reached out to, and most importantly, have a follow-up date. But there are specific programs, and you've probably heard the acronym before. Maybe you knew what they were, or maybe you didn't know. CRM, Customer Relationship Management. Those are the kinds of software that you really want to invest in. Do yourself a favor, don't skimp out on this one. Now, I myself personally, I use Salesforce. I understand Salesforce is not the cheapest option by any stretch of the imagination. And Salesforce has different types of licenses. If you can at all possibly afford the professional license, I highly recommend you get the professional license. Again, I understand the cost, but let me explain to you why, in my opinion, that it's worth it. So Salesforce is an amazing tool. Now, I'm not saying Salesforce is the only CRM out there. There are other CRMs, but Salesforce is the one that I now have the most familiarity with. I've used NetSuite CRM, and I've used some smaller ones like Act. Some of you out there might be familiar with Act, but to me, the Rolls Royce of CRMs is Salesforce. Now, with the with the unlimited license, I should say it that way, not professional, say unlimited license. The one thing that you can do in unlimited is you can build lightning apps. What is a Lightning? Lightning apps, or short for Lightning applications, you can customize certain options in Salesforce, and you can, you know, customize it to work the way your business works within your industry. I think that is the most powerful feature of Salesforce, is that it's a platform and you can customize that platform. It's already got things set up because no matter what industry you're in, you're going to have customers, you're going to have accounts, you're going to have interactions or activities with those accounts, and you can monitor all of that out of the box with Salesforce. Now, with a little bit of, not a lot, but a little bit of learning, the trailheads are excellent. You can learn how to customize your Salesforce application, and that's what I did. We've had many multiple Salesforce applications that we've rolled out, which help us to manage the film and television side of our business. And now we're going to be rolling out other parts of that on Salesforce. So now, this is not a commercial for Salesforce, but I'm just saying that that's the application that we use. It doesn't matter what you want to get, but you need some sort of customer relationship management. Why? Because when you reach out to people, when you're prospecting, you want to have a follow-up schedule. You want to know, hey, I talked to this person a week ago. I want to follow up with them within a week, or and you also want to quickly be able to recall, well, what was our last interaction about? What did we talk about? What did we agree on was the next steps? And it's a lot easier than having to go and dig up the email to figure out, okay, this is the latest email, and this is what we said we were going to do. You can keep track of all of this in the CRM. I think this is a must-have. If you're going to be out and you're going to be trying to win business, whether it's B2B or B2C, you have to have a way to keep track of this so that you can land more sales, get more contracts. And that's what the ultimate goal is. So that's one of the things you may not have thought about, you may not have had in but you're going to need that to help you run the day-to-day aspects of the business. So invest in a very good customer relationship management tool. Now, the other thing that you're going to have to think about is communications. So, and we're going to put those communications in two different buckets: internal communication and external communication. Now, again, there are lots of tools out there that you could use. I'm just going to talk about what we use. Again, this is not saying that there aren't other tools that you could use, but obviously the tools that we use are the ones, and the tools that I have worked on professionally in an IT perspective are the ones that I'm most familiar with. So I'm most familiar with Microsoft 365. It is, again, for a small business, what Microsoft has done is now that they've bundled all of their applications into an online license. And to me, it is fabulous. You can look at the different various licensing options that you have and decide what's right for you. But what comes with that, with no matter what almost no matter what configuration you choose, is you get a professional email. You should go out. You need to buy your own domain. You need to look professional. So you need to buy your own domain, or I'm not a fan of this, but there's also a way you can use Gmail. You can have your own professional domain through Gmail. I'm not as much as a fan as having an actual domain through a web hosting provider, or however however you get that email domain, but get a professional domain. That's the first thing you need to do. Then once you have that, you can use that domain inside a Microsoft 365 license. You need emails, you need professional looking emails, you need to have a professional signature. Again, for those of the non-technical people, you're thinking about, oh my goodness, that's so, it sounds like, Fortunately, we have this, we live in the world of YouTube. Uh, I'm telling you, there's a YouTube video, out there for just about anything, and Vimeo. Don't forget Vimeo. Either on YouTube or Vimeo, you can find great instructional videos that will teach you how to do that. And again, if you guys, if there's demand out there and you guys want me to do a video like that, certainly by all means, leave it in the comments so that I know, and maybe I'll do a separate video on just that, on how do you set up your Microsoft 365. But again, I think there are already pretty good videos out there that will do that. But you need professional emails. You need to be able to send it out. You need to have, again, a professional looking signature. This will give your company some gravitas. And also, don't forget that your email is like a major point of advertising. So put your major product or service, or if you have a corporate tagline, all of that information should be in it. Now, you don't want your email signature to be 5 pages long, but don't waste that space. That is perfect advertising space. And it's free. It's free it'll be any person that you contact through email. Boom, you can have whatever your product is, a little blurb, and have like a link that goes out to someplace, either on your website, or if you have a WooCommerce, or if you're on or an Amazon store. However, if you're doing e-commerce, or however you're doing it, you could have a link. It could be a link to your website, whatever the case may be. But your email, and again, your email is a major point of marketing for you. Do not waste it. And most of us, I know I didn't when I started Quintasia Studios, which is the latest company, or one of the latest companies that I've started. That was the lesson that was, really drilled home to me, is that I needed to utilize that space. So if you ever get an email from me, you will see I am advertising about our podcast, and depending upon, what's going on, there might be an upcoming movie. This particular video, I'll probably be advertising so people know about it. It's major advertising space. But you need to have a way to communicate with, even if you are a one person show, you still need a professional email system. I know but that's why you need to know this all in advance, so you can figure out, well, what is it going to cost what is it truly going to get cost to get started? So you can figure out all of these numbers and have that ready, and say, I'm going to be prepared to lay these funds out for X number of months while I'm building this business. And I think it's an important tool to have. Now, the other thing that you need to know is you'll probably need something like, we talked about CRM. Now, I talked about Salesforce. And yes, you can do email campaigns out of Salesforce. And I love Salesforce. But I'll be completely honest, it's not the easiest application to do an email campaign. I think something like a MailChimp, or my personal favorite, Brevo, and that's Brevo, brevo.com. I think those two are better at doing email, like a newsletter or something like that. You need that. But here's the thing you need to understand about those platforms. Most of the big newsletter emailing distribution platform types, they require you to have a distribution list where the people on your distribution list have opted in for your content. All right. Now, if you buy email lists, that does not count. Okay. They'll tell you, oh, but they have opted in. No, they can't opt in for a general. They have to opt in specifically to get your emails. And unless they have done that, whatever, list service is claiming that, oh, these are all checked and they're fine, that's baloney. They have to opt in for your specific content. So just be aware that most of the big platforms, Constant Contact, Brevo, MailChimp, they have a restriction that you cannot send out cold emails, meaning that your your distribution list has had to have opted in for you. Now, what if you need to send out emails to people that you don't know? Well, as long as you are compliant with CAN spam laws, and again, this is out of the scope of this particular video, but learning about, all right, what CAN spam is and how do you send out a compliant cold email. Now, let me back up for a second. What is a cold email? Cold email simply means that you don't know this person, that this person doesn't know you, they haven't asked for your content, you are simply sending it out to them, and you're trying to see, hey, would you be interested in my product or service? And that's fine. But the traditional platforms, the newsletter platforms, the emailing, like I said, constant contact and so on and so forth, you can't do that from their platform. So you have to find platforms, and fortunately there are. Again, the one that I use is Sales Handy. I will put links for the ones that I recommend. I will also include that in our in our resource list so that you have it and check it out. And maybe maybe that might be the right solution for you. Now, full disclosure: one, I am an affiliate of Sales Handy, and two, Sales Handy is not the cheapest option either. But you get what you pay for. I strongly believe that. It has a lot of great features, like for instance, you can do an email sequence. Now, so what's an email sequence? It's not, you're not going to send one email. It's not one and done. It's going to be multiple contacts building up, to a point. You're creating a funnel. First you got to build awareness, then you got to build interest, then you make a specific offer, so on and so forth. And that's really what the marketing process is. It's not, hey, very rarely you're going to send one email and a person is going to respond, ooh, that's great. That's exactly what I wanted. You're trying to establish awareness and establish a relationship to get them to trust you that what you're saying about your product or service is accurate and that they fully understand what it is and how it will help them. So that takes time. That's usually over multiple emails. Now, the best thing about tools like Sales Handy is that you can do multiple emails, and you don't have to remember when it's time. So let's say you send out the first email on day 1 and you want the second one to go out on day 4. You can create a sequence, an email sequence that will do that. It will remember, hey, it's time to send out. They're called in Sales Handy, they're called steps. It's time to send out the next step for that email sequence. Highly recommend you invest in this tool. Now, again, that may not be within your budget, particularly when you're starting out. So you might do this on a spreadsheet for a while, but when you can afford to graduate to a professional application, strongly recommend that you do so, and that you do. If you don't like Sales Handy, then I strongly recommend that you do your research and you find the right tool. But those are things that you're going to need to help you grow your business and bring more customers in there. Word of mouth is very important. Your existing customers, you want them to be giving you referrals, and that's great. But you can't simply depend 100% on referrals. You should be more aggressive and go out and try to get new customers. I know that costs money, that customer acquisition cost that you're going to hear about. It's important, but particularly in a downturn, the larger the customer base that you have, the more staying power you have to survive. And prosper when others might be retreating and may not be making it. So something to think about. So another thing that you're going to need, and again, I realize how overwhelming it can seem. Oh, this is too many things. You take it a little bit at a time. Just think about them. Again, if you know you don't have the patience, tolerance to kind of learn these things, then think about how you're going to bring that expertise into your business so that you can, these things can get done, but they are important. Now, in addition to being on the IT side, before I was on IT, when I did IT type work, I was in finance and accounting. So that's my baby. And I'm passionate about that. So sorry for the next about 5 minutes. I'm about to geek out on you. You're probably thinking, what, you think you weren't geeking out before? But yeah, okay. But now I'm really going to geek out on you because I'm going to talk about your financials. I don't care what the size of your business is, you have to have financial. You have to have the ability to generate financial statements. And you can say, well, I don't have investors, so I don't need that. Let me correct you on that one. Okay. There isn't a single business alive that does not have an investor, even if you're a sole proprietorship, because you are the investor and you need to think that way. The money that you are investing in yourself, but you are still an investor and you should want to know, well, am I getting a good return on my money? And if you don't have an accounting system, there's no way you're going to be able to answer that question, So you have to have it. Now, whether you want to use QuickBooks, you want to use Xero, you want to use Sage, whatever the tool may be, I would say start out with the most cost affordable option, but you need to think through what you need to do. Like if you're, one of the issues that I love QuickBooks, that's the solution that we use. But the limitation that we have with QuickBooks is we have multiple legal entities. In QuickBooks, I hear rumors they're working on something like that. But right now, there's no way that it just wasn't set up to do it. There's no way to be able to produce consolidated financial statements. Now, most of you, this is not going to be an issue that you have to worry about in the beginning. But my point is pick the accounting solution that fits your situation. I would say for the vast majority of you out there, something like a QuickBooks would work. Or like, again, there are there are websites that evaluate these different packages. I would definitely, afford yourself. I'll tell you what, I'm going to add that to the resource list too. Like Capterra is a great website to go to that will evaluate all these different software. It gives you the features, it evaluates the price, against other competitors, so you can make a decision on what makes sense to you. But I find, even though a lot of people might poo-poo QuickBooks, but QuickBooks has a lot. I can set up the chart of accounts that I want, and that's huge. I can track my revenue and expenses the way I want. They have different, track it by department, and they have some other customizable, special user-defined fields that you can use. All of this is good. Now, again, if this is, I'm going to stop geeking out here because I don't want to lose you all, but you need to have some sort of accounting system so that you can keep track of your revenue, you can keep track of your expenses, and you can also keep, it helps you to predict your cash flow so that you can see on a monthly basis based off of what things you've agreed to pay for already. Like if you have subscriptions and you have recurring costs, you can, run reports so you can see, okay, am I good? Can I do these things? And then of course, you're going to need to be able, when you go out if you go out for any kind of lending, for any kind of funding from loans, you should automatically know, like, based off of the amount of the loan that you're taking out, how many, there's coverage, interest times ratio. There's certain special ratios that, again, too geeky for this video, but there's certain special, what your quick ratio is and all that other kind of good stuff that you need to know, again, without doing, having your accounting statements readily available. it's not really possible to have that information to get it, and you're going to need it at some point. So don't skimp on that. Don't wait till the end of the year and then dump on your accountant a whole bunch of receipts and say you figure it out. That is so unfair. You don't have to be an accountant to, learn how to enter transactions in. It takes a little bit of knowledge. And again, if that's something that there's interest in, I can definitely give you a or as non-geeky as I can get. Maybe that's not non-geeky enough, but kind of a primer on, okay, how do you just enter in your monthly transactions, so that you quickly have it. And again, well, I think I mentioned it earlier in the video, the beauty of these types of programs is you can download your transactions from your banks, because remember I said connectivity is an important issue. So you can download your transactions, and you can automatically do your bank reconciliation, provided you've set everything up perfectly or near perfectly. You still have to kind of, even when it's automatic, your application is going to make the best guess on how to, book the transaction, but it's not always correct. So you still need to review it, make sure it's going into, going to the accounts, the buckets, if you will, of how you categorize your expenses and revenue. It's going where you wanted it to go. But you need to do that. And you can't wait till the end of the year, because that makes it so incredibly hard for your accounting professional, because they've got to go through a year's worth of receipts. That's something that you should keep organized through the year. And again, that's why you need an accounting professional and a tax professional, because they can advise you on how you should be keeping your records, so that you can make your year end far less painful. But that's something else that you should be thinking about, that you also need to set up. And a lot of people, and that's it's really gonna, particularly if your business starts taking off, if you don't have these things in place, you can very quickly start overspending and not realize that you're overspending, and you can get yourself into big trouble very quickly. So do this step. I highly recommend it. And then finally, based off the type of structure that you have to understand what your filing obligations are. I know this isn't the sexy part of starting a business, but this is all part of it. And you don't have to worry about like trying to understand everything all at once. Again, the purpose of this video is just to make you aware, hey, this stuff is out there. Now you got to go and, seek more information. And I'll try to do my best to help you. I'll pull together some resources for you so that you know where to go to find out more information on these sources. But if you're an LLC, or if you're C Corp, S Corp, partnership, whatever, there are certain filing obligations. Usually you will have them at the federal level. You'll have to file paperwork at the federal level, and you will have to file paperwork at the state level. You may even have to file it at the county and or city level as well. Depends on where you live. Now, the good news is on the federal side, you're only taxed on your profits. So if you don't make any profits, there's nothing to tax. However, you still must file. Now, be aware at the state level, if you are incorporated. So for a sole proprietorship, it's just, there's no difference between profits and your income. Your income or your profits from your business, you would file your business income as part of your personal income taxes. Now, for an LLC and a C Corp and an S Corp, there's different filing requirements for those, and that's going to depend upon how you set up your corporation. Again, that's kind of outside of the scope of this, but just understand that when you are incorporated, you have to pay the state for the privilege of being incorporated. That is separate and apart from whether you made money or not. So you're going to owe every state that you are operating in, including the state you are incorporated in, you're going to have to pay them some sort of usually they're called franchise taxes. So, and that's, they have their minimum, it's whatever, that particular state is, but you need to know when the filing deadlines are for those states. And there's usually some type of reporting that you also have to do that goes along with that filing fee. But just know that that's part of that. And you should have like a schedule. Now that is something you can set up like on a calendar or an Excel spreadsheet, and set it up so that it sends you a reminder on that date. But like if you can put it on a calendar or something like that, that would probably be best. But you got to know what your filing obligations are. Again, work with your tax and accounting professional to make sure that you're ready and that you're filing those. Don't be late on those, because sometimes I found that in the hard way. Sometimes, the original filing requirement may not be all that expensive, but if you file late, that penalty all of a sudden now makes the filing fee a lot more substantial. So try to get your filings in on time. Again, so that's, it's talking about nuts and bolts, how you do business, things that you should just have in your mind of, how you're going to, operate the company on a day-to-day basis. Now I'm going to talk about setting goals and objectives. I believe this is important, particularly because when you first get started, you have all of these ideas running through your head. You don't know which way you're going to turn. You want to try everything to see what's going to be profitable. But you do need to have focus, because if you don't, what's going to happen is you're going to be so scattershot that you're going to confuse your customers. Customers are going to not know, well, what is your company? What does it do? What does it stand for? You want to be very clear about the problem that you're trying to solve. If you've started a business, you generally started it because there was some problem that you're trying to solve. So you need to figure out, okay, this is my problem that I want to solve. You're not trying to solve world peace, unless that's the problem you're trying to solve. If that's the case, that's quite the problem to solve. But most of the cases, you're not trying to solve, you're trying to solve one specific problem. Stick to that. Stick to that. There'll be the temptation to go off and try to do certain things, do other things, but become really good at solving that initial problem that you have identified. In order to do that, the way that I keep on track is I establish goals and objectives. Now, if you go to the big fancy corporations, we will call this management by objectives. This is the same thing. And I will kind of just very quickly go over like the main salient points that I do, but I use this technique to help stay on track. So what do you do? First, let me talk about what's the difference between a goal and an objective. So a goal is usually a long-term and broad outcome that you want to achieve. An objective is usually shorter term, it is specific, and it is measurable. Now, let me give you an example of that, and hopefully this will make some sense for you. I believe that, product returns are one measure of customer satisfaction. So therefore, I want to say, I want to reduce my current level of product returns by 25% by the end of the current fiscal year. Okay, now that's a specific objective. Shorter term, it's specific. I'm talking just about product returns. I want to reduce them by 25% from the current level, and I want to do so by the end of the current fiscal year. That's an objective. So when you're setting your goals up, whatever they're, so the broad goal would be, I want to increase customer satisfaction. Then when you start listing out your specific objectives that you want to do, and you write them down, and again, they'll be like the example that I gave with reducing product returns. Any objective that you come up with that doesn't align with your goal, you get rid of. That's how you stay on track. I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to increase productivity by, I want to decrease paper cost, just overall paper cost in the company by 10% for this fiscal quarter. It's a noble objective, but it decreases expenses, but that objective does not relate to the goal of increasing customer satisfaction. There's no direct tie between lowering paper. Now, I know some of you out there can argue, but I think there is. For the purpose of this example, let's just say that there isn't a direct tie to lowering the paper cost that's used in your company to customer satisfaction. So when you're prioritizing what your objectives should be, that one you would cross out because it doesn't relate to what you're setting as your priorities. And that's how you should approach that. That's what I would recommend, is you figure out, and don't do more than 3 to 5 broad goals. You say, whatever that may be, you want to increase customer satisfaction, you want to grow your customer, base, whatever your goal is, boom, you list it. Then every objective, which will be a specific measure, has to relate back to those goals. It has to be a specific measurement of whatever goals you laid out for that year or for whatever period of time you want that goal to cover. Because the goal could be multi-years. Like, I'm always wanting to increase customer satisfaction, so that might be my goal every year, is just to keep increasing customer satisfaction. I don't know if there's a threshold level or whatever the case may be, but that's a good tool. That's a tool that I do. I am a management by objective individual, and that's how I keep myself on track. So you may want to employ those kind of tools in your business to help you figure out what's important and what's not. So it's a fairly straightforward exercise. Whatever you come up with, if it doesn't relate to the things that you said you wanted to prioritize, you get rid of it. So that's an important tool for you to keep in mind. Okay, now, networking is the biggest thing that you can do to help your business. You must find, organizations where you can meet other business owners and you can talk about your business. Now, I'm not talking about going out there, and we've all met the skeevy, phony balonies. I'm not suggesting that you be like that you pretend to care about people only so that you can find an opening to talk about yourself. I do not believe that that is a good way to go about networking. Be genuine, be authentic, be yourself. Talk to the person, be concerned about, well, hi, what do you do? What does your company do? Great. How long have you been a member of this organization? Something like that. You can start off the conversation, be genuinely interested in people. Now, if you find that after talking with the person, you're not getting a good positive vibe, move on. It's like, you should be networking with the people that you have a connection with, that you have a positive vibe with. You're not going to like every person you meet, and that's okay. If you determine they happen to be a major contact and you need them, well, now you have to make a decision for yourself. Are you able to, get yourself in the proper mental space that you can try to establish some level of connection, even though on a personal level, you may not particularly enjoy that person's company. Now, I don't really have any advice for you on that one. You have to make that decision for yourself. Well, okay, I lied. I said I don't have any advice. I'll tell you what I do. I anyone that I interact with, it's definitely because I've had, I personally like the interaction and, want to continue it, want to grow it. If I don't care how big and important a contact may be. If I came away with a strong dislike, I'm not going to deal with that person because they could be harder to deal with in a business situation. It's about trust. It's about, comfort level. Just be careful that you're not allowing unconscious bias, because a person doesn't look like you or dress like you or talk like you. You don't want to exclude people on those grounds. You simply want to, if there's something about the person's character you find objectionable, okay, move on. But if you like the person, if this is a person that you think was helpful, you try to be helpful to them. Keep in touch with them. I'm telling you, this is going to be one of the best things you can do for your business. It doesn't matter what business you're in, what industry you're in, networking is key because people, once they know about you, when they hear about opportunities that might not be good for them, but they'll think in their head, wait a minute, I just met so and so, and that's what they do. This might be will be great. You will see those type of referrals happen for you. And it will help you immensely, particularly if you are at the stage where you're trying to scale your business and now you need to find investors. Networking is a must. So join your local chamber of commerce, whatever it may have, whatever it may be. Join your local chamber of commerce. And look, if you spend the money and you join and you don't attend any of the meetings, you don't go to any other functions, you will get zero benefit from it. If you're going to spend the money, you might as well participate. You only get the benefit if you participate. And if you go to an event, do not sit in the corner. I'm just as guilty myself. So I understand that it's tough. Do not sit in the corner and not interact with anyone. If no one's coming your way and no one's, interacting, you have to move from your seat, go to where the people are at. And, one of the things that, and this is something I want to get better at too, is I'm not great at initiating the conversation. I always feel awkward. Some people are great at it. I think that that's a skill that can be learned. That, well, how do you start up a conversation? And that's something that I'm going to focus on because I think that that's something that I can get better at. But if you know how to do that, then go do that. Go to that meeting, talk to people, be a good listener. Don't make it 100% about you. When they ask you what you do, by all means, have your elevator speech ready. Don't give them your life story. Please don't do that. Just give them a flavor of what you do. Let them enough to let them see your passion. And then if they want to know more, they'll ask you questions. But that networking piece you cannot overlook if you want to grow your business. And it will also, especially if you're hiring people, again, it's a great way to find people is by telling people what you're doing, let people see your passion, get to know you, get to like you, and want to help you. While this is not a video per se on how to find a partner, I'm just going to give you a few quick suggestions on if you don't have someone in your circle already that fits what you need to bring in. Let's say you don't know a whole lot about accounting and you would feel better having someone on board in the business to run the accounting side of the business. I would network with other entrepreneurs. I would go specifically to accounting events. There are different accounting associations. Find out where an event is happening that's local to you, and then go to that event. If you allow your introversion and your fear of contact of people to rule you, it's going to, you know, hamper your chances for growing your business. So I strongly urge you, get out there and network. Those are like really, really great places to meet other entrepreneurs. And especially if you get to know the people that are running the organization, a lot of times they can point you because they are familiar with all the members. You could tell them what you're looking for, and they might have suggestions for you. So that's just a few quick ideas of what you could do if you don't have a partner. You decided you need one, and you don't know, and there's nobody that you know that comes to mind. Those are some places that you might want to go to help you find the resource that you're looking for. So that's it for this video. I hope that, you know, I presented some ideas to you that you can take, you know, think about when you're trying to take your idea from the idea stage and turn it into a business. Not every idea that you have is going to be worthy of a business, but if you find an idea that you do think is worthy, I hope this video has at least, you know, given you some pointers and some tips on what you can, you know, what you need to do to take that idea forward. Thanks a lot. My name is Gregory Jenkins. I've been your host, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.